Welcome everybody to the first video. Now we're in full development of Elite after the Kickstarter. A great, huge thanks to everyone who's already on the campaign. It's fantastic to be here, and I don't think that's going to change throughout the game. We're enthusiastically planning now, working out all the different aspects of development. The app for all of the pledge, things like that, is live online now. I'm sure everyone has already seen that, and we're working through that process as we speak. So, we've had some questions through the forums, and the job of this video is to answer 5 of those questions, so I'll kick that off now. So the first question is from MPat, which is, are there any particular books, films, TV shows and artists that are influencing the way Elite hardware is going to look in-game? Now, to me this is actually a really interesting question, because for me, books, films, art, it's the atmosphere they convey is the most important thing. They say a lot of things about the world without actually it being quite so overt. So when you have clear functional imagery where you can immediately see from an image of a shape how it's going to work, you see doorways, you see hatches, you see grab handles, I think that's one of the things that really grounds an object in the world. Things, you know, from the Elite point of view, things need to be able to dock, to land. The interiors need to make sense, so the hatches have to be in a sensible position, windows and all of that sort of thing. And it's astonishing how much artwork that's out there is completely knocked out by those practical things. You know, whether it's some of the glorious imagery you see on the books of 60s and 70s sci-fi, where you have amazing arced shapes, you think, well, how's that going to land? How's that going to dock with another ship? If you look at other things where the windows are presented right at the front, you say, well, where would the guy's feet go? It sounds terribly mundane, but when you come to do an interior for these things, you realise, actually, yes, it doesn't work, it doesn't make sense. So, to say what sort of, I think it might, to turn it around a little bit, what sort of science fiction worlds work in the world of Elite? I think, for example, excuse me, and I also would like to apologise because I've got a bit of a cold. So if I cough and sneeze on the way through, I'm sorry about that. So science fiction things that work. So for me, some of the early material in Star Wars was great. It was consistent. You can see this the grubbiness. You see how it worked. You could see how a ladder would go up to it. I'm talking about things like X-wing fighters, things like that. The later series of Battlestar Galactica really looked like they would work in some way. You know, they've been designed to work in a real world. Now with Elite we have other restrictions, if you like, requirements. So we don't have artificial gravity, which I know is a sci-fi staple. But what we've tried to do is to stick with things that make sense in science. Apart from hyperspace, which you said, that's a sort of suspension of disbelief, if you like. But you don't need gravity in space. We have concepts like magnetic boots, we have space stations that rotate, that give you essentially artificial gravity, but it's artificial in a way that truly works today. It's not artificial as in it's not possible. So with those sort of things, they create design philosophies for the ships. If you imagine a trading ship, it will probably spend a lot of its time landed either in artificial gravity inside a rotating space station, or eventually landed on the surface of a planet where it's the right way up. So it still makes sense for there to be some sort of general orientation to the ship where people walk around inside, and you need to have a concept of up. But also we design it in mind the fact that it will spend some of its time in zero-G. So there are some interesting design philosophies that come from that, and you'll see that over the period of development. So moving on to the next question. We have a question from RMPG. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that, so that'll do. Which is, will the PC and Mac players be able to play on the same server? So I believe elements of this have already been answered. The answer is yes, but what's more, you will be able to start playing on a PC and continue on a Mac. That's as soon as we release the Mac version, which is of course a bit later, and back again. The idea is that you will be able to interchange your position and you'll be able to play on the same account as long as you're not playing on both at the same time. We will also hope with time to add additional platforms to that mix, and you will get those additional platforms as part of your account that you've already got, which I think is great. Right, third question from Kefriman or K-Freeman. So when flying with your friends, can you share your nav map information, for example points of interest of where you're heading? So this one's more complex. The answer is also yes, because I think it's important if you're in a multiplayer session, you want to go the same route to somewhere. You're going to want to be able to share nav data so you both do it together. We haven't worked out how the user interface for that's going to work, but clearly what will happen is you'll connect to each other. You'll either hail them or you will have a already connected over audio, and you'll be able to send a message as a some sort of attachment. Okay, question 4. So this is from Cutter. Since space travel will be long and boring at times due to low fuel or damaged equipment, will there be time-wasting activities equipped purchased for your ship, like chess, cards, onboard, PC, etc.? Now this one, the answer has to be no. You don't design a game to have really long, boring, frustrating sections in it. It would be really annoying, and so the answer is no. There's nothing to stop you playing on a different window on your PC, on another board game. People do things like that anyway. But really, no. The whole point of Elite is we're doing a game that we want to play, that I want to play. I don't want the sort of game where I have to occupy myself for hours. You know, this isn't a frustrating long car journey where kids are going, how many more miles? I want to stop, you know, and all of that sort of thing. No, the whole point with Elite Dangerous is we've actually brought in hyperspace now that doesn't take weeks, that takes seconds. And the point is, from a multiplayer game, this is how I want to relax in an evening. This isn't how I want to do my long car journeys. We will find ways, and we have mechanisms for if your ship's damaged and all that sort of thing, that still won't be long. It might be longer than a few seconds, but is not going to be the sort of thing where you play a game of chess. So hopefully that answers that one. Okay, and finally the 5th question, which is from Dinbar. Will there be media, such as newspapers in-game? So, not as such. Newspapers, for me, are from a previous age, if you know what I mean. There will be news feeds that you'll be able to plug into and feed and potentially filter, but they really won't be presented as newspapers. You know, they'll indicate major and minor games events and commentary on them, saying, oh, you know, King Aziz of such a world is now visiting the opening space station. There is a rumour that, you know, and it will all be able to be linked together, and you'll be able to sift it and go, oh, I wonder. Because when you see contracts coming out for a place on an unnamed person, you might want to look to try and see who it's for. So the news feeds will form a major part of the gameplay, but they won't be set out as newspapers with lots of padding in, because I think that ends up ultimately being quite frustrating. Okay, so those are the questions for this week. I hope you found that useful. Once again, apologies for the cold. And thank you very much for all the effort that people have been putting on the design discussion forums and on the other forums with the game. We've been having a fantastic time nailing down some very, very obscure details of the fiction behind the game. You know, how all the different elements interact with each other. It's absolutely fantastic. We're very, very excited. And look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you very much.